My name is Michael Allen. I'm 21 years old. I'm a student at Baylor University.
Sweet, Michael. Glad you're here, man. Um, what would you say is the truest thing about you?
The truest thing about me is I know where my identity lies.
Where does your identity lie?
In Jesus, in Christ. I kind of went through a couple different phases growing up of like trying to find where my identity was and placing it in things that ebbed and flowed, and whether it was football, whether it was relationships. But like now I can confidently say that like Jesus is my firm foundation and I know where my identity comes from.
I probably should have said this beforehand, but you can just talk to me.
Okay.
Actually.
Yeah.
Um, tell me a little bit about that. You're like your identity. Talk to me about the struggle of your identity going ebbing and flowing as a result of football or whatever.
Yeah. I think growing up, sports was always kind of a part of my life, and so whether that be from family influences or friends kind of always playing in the yard, and things got competitive, and so you kind of place your worth in who you are as a person and how well you performed on the field. And so when you won, you felt really good. When you lost, you felt really bad about yourself, and so you kind of almost chased that win, right? You always chased wanting to feel good about yourself, and so when things didn't go well, you felt pretty bad about yourself. And so I just thought that like sports was kind of a big part of my life, and so I placed my identity in that, and I just kind of realized as I got older that that's something that's not doesn't have a firm foundation at all. So like when things got hard, whether it was injury or things weren't going your way, like you kind of got in this rut and you couldn't get out of because you placed your identity in something that wasn't really firm.
Yeah, you said the word firm foundation a couple times. Explain that a little bit more. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's like in Matthew chapter 7, it's just the analogy of like building your house on sand or building your house on rock. And so like it talks about in the Gospels where it's like when the storms come, right, the house that's built on rock is firm and it's stationary, whereas the house on sand is going to fall over. And so for me, it's like the word firm means it's something that's not going to change. Like whether things are good or bad, it's always going to be the same. So it's like something that I can put my faith in and put my identity in, and I know whatever happens in the world, it's not going to change. So that's why I would say firm means to me.
Yeah. How do you know that that's firm? Like, how do you say your foundation in Christ is firm, but like how do you know that?
Yeah, I think honestly it took a long time for me to realize, and it's still a daily battle, because I know that, but sometimes I get caught up in like being in this world, right? And so I think I know that because I know who Jesus is, and I know the relationship that I have with him and what he says about me. And so that's taken a long time for me to realize, and I think it's just been a product of like as I'm growing with him. But I know it's firm because I've tried everything else and it hasn't worked. And then I finally like found Jesus and the love that he has for me. And whether I had a great day or a bad day, I still slept that night knowing that he loved me the same.
Yeah. You said you tried a lot of things that were not firm. What were some of the things that you have tried throughout your life to find a foundation in?
Yeah, I think sports was big. I think relationships were also a big one, whether that be like certain friendships or even a romantic relationship, like just putting all your worth in that. I think academics and like kind of overall success, to be honest. Like I always felt like I was chasing something and I had to do this to win the approval of other people. And that's exhausting. Like it's really exhausting. And so like I kind of felt my worth and how other people saw me, and whether you're living like well or not well, like someone's always going to have a problem with you. And so that's something that I'm still trying to work on, but I think I've really placed my worth in what other people think, and that's just not a good place to be at all.
Yeah. Share with me a little bit about just what that struggle looks like of placing your worth in how other people view you, and how you'll use your faith to work through that.
Yeah, I think it honestly starts with kind of going back to your relationship with Jesus, right? Like if I, in my earlier stages and before I knew him, like I was trying to be a bunch of different people to make sure that other people like me. Like, I could talk to you one way, and then I would have to kind of change who I was to talk to somebody else, right? So they would like me. And that's just exhausting. And it's like God created you in his image, and like it took me a while to figure out, like, you're super unique and no one's like you. Like, that's a good thing, right? Like, you shouldn't change who you are to try and win the approval or the opinions of other people. And so I think as I've increased in my faith and as I've grown in my faith, like, I've learned that like God created me, like he knows the amount of hairs on my head, right? And so it's like, you don't need to be anything other than who he created you to be. And so not trying to be the person that puts on a front and tries to talk one way to you and talk one way to him, or kind of almost even change up like your, not beliefs, or like just change what you say just for people to, like you, right? And I think that's just exhausting. And so like standing firm and like having a backbone and having that faith in Jesus, like, I know who I am, and I'm not going to apologize for it anymore.
Who are you? You said you know who you are. I know who I am.
Yeah.
Who are you?
I'm a child of God. I'm someone that is going to treat other people the right way. I'm going to stand for what's right. I'm going to try and live by, biblical principles. I'm going to share fruit like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. I truly want the best for other people. And like what I think is right and what I think God's kind of discerning in my life, like I'm going to act on that. And I'm not going to let, things of this world dictate who I am in that moment, right? I'm going to try and be the same person every day, regardless of the situations.
Yeah. That's a powerful identity. Did that come easy to get to that point, or did you have to like go through anything to become secure in what you just said?
Yeah, definitely not easy. And to be honest, like, it's easy to say, it's a completely other thing to do, right? So I still struggle with this daily. I think I've gotten a lot better, but I think you have to like be down and be at your lowest point, and then when God picks you up in that moment, So honestly, my testimony was back my freshman year of high school. Like I didn't know Jesus. Like, I didn't grow up in a Christian household. My older brother is 3 years older, and he was a leader at FCA, and like he kind of took me to school in the mornings because I didn't have a choice, so I had to go to FCA early. And I just remember the first time I met Jesus was my brother was asked to speak at a Fields of Faith event, and he's a little bit shyer and quieter, and I'm kind of the pesky younger brother, and so I was like, sure, I'll go, but like, just don't embarrass us, And so I get up there, and I was actually in a sling because I had broken my collarbone in like the second play of freshman year of football. And so you can imagine, like, if your worth's in football and your worth's in what other people think of you, as a freshman, I'm like shot. I'm like, man, like, I can't play football. What am I supposed to do? I'm just trying to make a good impression. So I was kind of at a pretty low point, like mentally, spiritually, and at the point I didn't even know what that meant. And I just watched my brother get up there and share, and like, Sauce, I didn't even recognize him. Like, it was like so confident, and he was so sure of what he said. And like, when I think of the word firm, like the way my brother talked about Jesus, I had never seen my brother talk about that, like anything in his life. And so like in that moment, I was like, dang, like, I need something like that. And so he kind of prayed over me, and that night ordered my first Bible. And since that day on, it's been a daily process of trying to form that identity in him. And I think some days are better and some days are tougher, but at the end of the day, like, I'm going to try every single day to lean on that identity and lean on my faith and not lean on things of this world.
Yeah. You've alluded to your relationship with Jesus as a big part of your life. What does it mean for you to have a relationship with Jesus, you specifically?
I think it means everything, I think as far as like knowing where your salvation is it's hard because you want to say relief, but at the same time it's like a daily, to get better and closer to him every day. But it's like, I know that he's going to take care of me. I know that he's a fair and just God, so like I don't have to be anxious and worry about things that are out of my control. So like for me, like it's hard because I'm a big like want to control everything, right? And so I want to be the person that, this is my plan for my life and I want to follow it, right? And God has sent me on many different paths that have been way better than the one that I thought was good. And so, like, my relationship with Jesus means that I'm not the one that's in control, right? And so he has his perfect will for my life, and it's up to me to not fight it and try and live my own way, but to like discern his will and then follow it, even when I don't understand it at the time.
Can you describe to me practically what it looks like for you to have a relationship with God?
Yeah, I think he's a lot of things to me. I think he's a father. I think he, speaks wisdom into me. He gives me a lot of advice in times of good and bad. I pray every day. So I think he's a father. I think he's a friend. I think when times are good or when times are bad, I know that I can reach out, whether that be in prayer or reading my Bible. He just reveals a lot of things to me through the Holy Spirit. So whether that be wisdom, whether that be love, and when I get in those times of trying to chase, earthly things, whether that's struggling with lust, whether that's trying to, pursue a career and some of those selfish ambitions, a lot of times Silas, he's kind of checked me in a healthy way, in a loving way, that I think I haven't really gotten before, right? And so I know certain things have happened in my life that are not of any human hand, but they're of his hand.
Yeah. Tell me, you play football. What are some of the challenges that you face playing football, being in that environment? Because you said earlier that you don't want to chase the world, basically. And you're playing on a team where there's just a lot of opportunity to make life about what you can do. Talk me through some of the challenges that you faced playing football at this level.
Yeah. I think football at this level is a blessing and it's also a curse. I think there's a lot of good things that come with it, and there's also some bad things that come with it. I think every single day, we talk about comparison as the thief of joy. Every single day, you're compared to 110 other guys. You're put up on a depth chart. You're charted on how you do. And that makes you put your worth in things that are earthly. Like, how will I perform that day? How will I play it around with the ball that day? And so, when you're always around that environment, I think it's hard to not put your identity in that because that's what you're always around. And so the comparison game is really, really tough, especially in today's day and age of college football when there's NIL and there's different pressures. It's so easy to get caught up in the, I want what he has. And it makes you forget how grateful you are and how God made you, right? And so I think some of the challenges are just comparison and you always want what you don't have, right? And so for me, I get caught up in coveting what other people have, and I lose sight of how much I have.
Tell me, what would you say are some of the biggest pressures that you feel, and maybe more of your teammates feel on the day-to-day?
Yeah, I think the pressure to perform every day, right? So whether that's lifts or runs or practice, you need to be at your best every single day. And so I think there's good and bad with that, right? There's good expectations of you, but when you put all of your worth into that and then you don't perform well, it can be pretty crushing, to you mentally and spiritually. And so I think a pressure to perform is a really big one at this level. And then also just going back to the comparison thing, I think it's you're constantly compared, and so I think that can make you lose sight of who you are, right? And it kind of goes back into earthly traits of how well I can play football, how well I can understand the scheme, how well I can do this, where it's everything, single one of those is getting compared to 100 different guys every single day, and it's not always about who you are, it's about what you can do in that moment.
Yeah. So for those who don't know what faith is or how to walk that out, if I had no idea what it meant to have a relationship with Jesus, and I asked you, what does it look like? How do I'm anxious, I struggle with comparison. All the things you struggle with, I struggle with, but I don't understand how you're finding peace. What would you say to that person?
I would just say at the end of the day, it's all about where you're placing your worth. And at the end of the day, say we're, whether it be sports or Las Vegas, it's where you're putting your bets, right? Where are you putting your money? Are you putting it all on, how football goes, or how, your career goes, because those things are going to go up and they're going to go down, and eventually, like, you're not going to find any peace with that because you're always going to be wanting more. Whereas for me, I've learned, like, hey, like, I'm with Jesus, and what he has me do, like, in my career, in my sport, that's all coming from him. And so I think, like, the perspective and the lens at which you look at things is the biggest. And so, like, if you have a godly perspective, if you have like, versus an earthly perspective, like, that'll change how you do that. So, like, if I'm feeling anxious about this, I can pray about it. It's like, why am I feeling anxious? And God may reveal to me, hey, it's because you want this, this, and this. I have this, this, and this for you. And so just sit there, trust in me, and be still. And so for me, it's like the lens at which you're viewing your day-to-day is the biggest. And so I would just encourage people to, whether that be starting your day or ending your day or all throughout your day, right? Like, kind of find God and connect with him and just ask him to guide you in whatever you're doing.
If I've never talked to God before, how would I go about doing that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways. You can just talk to him as a friend. Some of the things that I find the most revealing to me are when I'm driving in my car and I turn up my music and I just sit there and I just listen. And a lot of times he reveals things to me. I pray every morning, just for him to guide me, and, like, whatever your will for my life is, like, let me follow that. So I think you can just start talking to him as a friend, and then let that develop into, hey, here's how I'm feeling this day. But I also think a big thing is, like, taking time to listen. I think a lot of times we take a lot of time doing the talking, but you can miss out on what the Holy Spirit's trying to do in your life if you don't sit there and kind of listen and wait to receive it.
What do you feel like recently God has spoken to you?
So I'm going to graduate this May from Baylor, and I'm kind of back into the big years of my life as far as making, like, big decisions, whether that be jobs or grad schools or kind of what I want to pursue career-wise. And it's pretty stressful. And I think, like I said earlier, I struggle with wanting to be in control. And, like, I want to plan everything out to where it's giving me the best opportunity to succeed. But I'm trying to get better at surrendering those things to God, right? So, like, I'm not going to be the one that's, like, chasing this, and if I'm putting all my worth into this one job or this one career, and if it doesn't work, then I'm done, right? But it's like, I truly believe that God opens doors that no man can close. And so, like, leaning into that and the dependence of, like, hey, God, this is your will for my life. Like, let me follow that. Because, Silas, to be honest, if I was following my will, I wouldn't even be here at Baylor. Like, I would be completely somewhere else, and it wouldn't be half as fruitful as what this has been to me here. But it's crazy that we forget that, So just trusting in him fully and, like, surrendering my will to him.
You just said if it was your will, you wouldn't be at Baylor. Tell me that story.
Yeah, so coming out of high school, I'd always kind of wanted to be a coach. It's always football coach. It's always kind of been in my family, and I feel like God's kind of discerned that and put that on my heart. And so I wanted to play football after high school. I think I was an okay high school player, but pretty undersized, and so didn't really know what opportunities I would have at the next level. And so one of my good buddies committed to play offensive line at Northwestern, and, like, that was one of my dream schools. And so I had kind of worked really hard to get a certain grade point average and a certain ACT score to get in. And they're like, hey, all you have to do is get in, right? That's it. Just get in the school, and then we'll try and get you on the football team and all this stuff. And I thought that was my plan. I thought that's exactly where I was going. I kind of had my eggs in that basket. That was when I was trying to be the one that made all these moves, and found out I didn't get in. Like, when I thought I should have. And when all your eggs are in that basket and when you don't really have a plan B, you're kind of rocked there for a second. And that was a big moment of me where, like, God, like, to be honest, like, there probably wasn't a reason that I shouldn't have gotten in, right? But, like, looking in hindsight, like, God was protecting me. And there wasn't even opportunity here at Baylor. And so I reached out to Iowa State and was able to get a preferred walk-on there, and then Baylor popped up through a family friend. They said, hey, you should just reach out, see what they say. And so I did, and they said, we like you, but we don't have a spot for you. So I kind of just waited and waited, and I should have gone to Iowa State several times, but they were patient with me, which is another crazy thing in of itself, because that's not common in college football. And a walk-on safety decided to quit. And so I was a walk-on safety, and so then that opened this one spot for me on the team to join. And that's what I was like. That's not a door that man could have opened up. That was something that God could have done. And this has just been a perfect place for me to, grow in my faith, to be around like-minded people, and it's just been such a blessing.
Tell me about how being here has grown you in your faith over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, so I got here in May of 2022, so kind of been here for around 3 years, and I think Christianity is such like a communal religion, right? And so it's like I truly believe that like who you're around is who you're going to become. A lot of the influence that you face, good or bad, are going to dictate who you become, and it's just been such a blessing. Like the fact that we're at a place that we, pray before and after practice, where we can have a team Bible study, and like the operations department can help fund that and like promote it. It's just been such a amazing opportunity, and I truly believe that, I've been a product of my environment. I've had a lot of people and coaches and administrators that pour into me, and like spiritual mentors like Josh Ahambe, Chris Womack, like you. Like I've had a lot of people that have just like been around me and kind of like cared about who I was as a person, as a believer, and that's not common. So it's like you don't get that at a lot of places. And then to still be able to compete at the highest level of football, to get a good degree, but to prioritize faith over all of that, like I think Baylor's just been such a blessing, and I couldn't be more thankful that I'm here.
Yeah. Who is a teammate of yours that you really are close with, or inspires you or encouraged you over the last few years?
Man, I've gotten to know a lot of guys over the past 3 years. This past year especially, like Trevin Mai, he was a senior defensive lineman, transferred from Oregon in 2023. We were kind of in Bible study group together, and to watch like his growth, from not owning a Bible, not really knowing, to getting a Bible and just diving straight in. He actually got baptized this past December, and now is kind of chasing a dream of an NFL. But like, it's really cool to see somebody like just start for the first time, and then I've seen him like jump in head first and just like grow as a believer and lead people, and like there's just like a different confidence that I see about him, the same way I saw it in my brother at that Fields of Faith event. And so he's someone that I've gotten really close with, and we've had a lot of those conversations and asked a lot of questions and just grown together, obviously, because I'm still new in my faith. And so he's someone that I've been really inspired by recently.
Speaking of the Baylor Bible study, tell me about that. You kind of in charge of facilitating it, getting it going, finding speakers. That's how we met. Tell me tell me the experience of the Baylor Football Bible Study.
Yeah, so it kind of started, we, had a group of believers, and on the team, we'd always kind of meet and talk about it, but there wasn't something like set in stone to where we'd all just like with the team we would meet. It was kind of just like conversations here and there. And so one of like the spiritual leaders, like John Maurer and Josh Ahambe, kind of talked to us from Baylor Sports Ministry and was like, would you guys want to do like a team Bible study? And like, I don't know what that organization would look like. And like me and Garrison Grimes at the time, who was a long snapper here, were like, that would be awesome. Like we should just do a player-led one, right? So we kind of started that up in 2023, the spring of 2023. And Harris Creek was really helpful. We started with this series called Better Man. And so they gave us a bunch of books, and we kind of started doing that series and watched videos and did small groups, and it's just kind of grown ever since then. And so we kind of meet every week, and there was 26 guys there this past Wednesday, and we've had 30, 35 guys every given week. And it's just been such a blessing to see something that started with 7 or 8 guys and just continue to grow. And like God's really working in that locker room, and to have those like conversations and those small group discussions, like we're all going through the same things, right? But like you oftentimes don't want to be ones to talk about it. And so it's just been really, really neat, really fruitful.
Can you think of any stories that come to mind of just really powerful moments in that Bible study?
Yeah, so this past semester, actually, so we've been doing this for 2 semesters. This will be the third. Kind of one of the guys I've been really inspired by has been growing a lot, and he kind of started going to things and was pretty quiet, and then kind of got more and more vocal. And this was the second day of the semester. We just got back to Waco from being on break, and we're just trying to get situated and see what was going on. And obviously we're gonna do the Bible study again, but didn't know what the logistics look like in the days. And I get this long paragraph text from this guy on the team, basically saying hey, I don't know what the plan is for Bible study this year, but I really need that in my life. This group has been a blessing, and I didn't know how much I needed it, to have that group of guys to go through the Word together and grow together and have that small group discussion time. And he was like, whatever you need me to do, I'll do. Was it financial, logistics, I'll set it up. And I was like, we just got back, but the fact that someone was that willing and that excited about that group, that just meant so much to me. And I was like, this is really, really special.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I have a unique perspective of your situation because I've been in it. And I know how difficult it is to be the man that God has made you to be when you're in that position at such a young age. Tell me just kind of a little bit about your experience of struggling to be the man that God has made you to be, but also receiving a lot of attention, receiving a lot of glory, things that make it more difficult to be what God has for you.
Yeah.
And simultaneously having to carry that pressure and also be that man, but also being a 21-year-old guy like everybody else.
Yeah. Man, that's a good question. I think it's been tough, right? I think it's been very blessed. I think he's given a lot of wisdom to me and kind of matured me in a way where it's I truly want to pour into others and serve to others. And I think sometimes I neglect myself, my own spiritual development, right? And it's Bible study. It's you're kind of planning, and trying to create an environment that's gonna let the Holy Spirit work through other people. That sometimes I lose sight of my own spiritual growth, and I think being a guy that might quote unquote lead a Bible study, we just talk about how our job is just to facilitate a setting to where God can work through us. And so we bring food in every week, and we started that as an incentive because we just wanted guys to show up, right? And it's what better way to get 22-year-old college guys to show up than having food. And so we talked about how the first, second, third time they might just show up for Chewy's night or whatever, Chick-fil-A night, and then the fourth time they might want to show up and get to know Jesus. But I think being the one that might be the one that gets up there and says things, I think you're looked at in a certain way. And I think there is a lot of pressure with that, to be honest. And I kind of just I want everyone to grow, and it's hard because there's almost a standard that you have to live up to, right? And it's it almost makes you feel you can't mess up because you want what's best for everybody. And if you mess up, then you feel you're letting them down. But I think I've really learned to be vulnerable with the guys. It's dude, I'm going through the exact same things you guys are, in my small group. And there's a lot of power in that because I think when you're vulnerable as a leader, that makes you closer to them, right? And so that's something that I've tried and been better at and work at. And then also just when people look at you in a certain way, it makes you want to chase the approval of man and other people. And so that's a different battle in and of itself. But it's of trying to go back to, hey, God has put you in this position for a reason, and your job is just to facilitate. I'm just letting God speak through me, right? It's not me. But I do think there's a lot of pressure in that, and it's sometimes it's hard to live up to, you want to be perfect, you never want to mess up. That's just not realistic, It's we're human beings, we're all going to fall short every single day. And so I probably need to, give myself a little more grace because God's given us a lot of grace.
Yeah.
So,
what are you looking forward to going forward? You have this season coming up.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the guys we have in the locker room. It's a special group, and it's kind of rare to have some continuity right now in the sport. So it's like there's been guys that are now here for 3 or 4 years, and we've kind of all grown up together and become men from boys. So I'm just really excited to see how much we can grow together and how close we can be as a team. I know God's got a plan already written for this season, and I'm just excited to see, what that is, and just go to work with those guys every day, because it's a blessing to be around, such incredible people, such incredible coaches. And I don't know, I just want to be where my feet are, I don't want to think too much about, what's next or what the results are going to be. I just want to be around the people. So.
What would be, if you could give one message to your teammates, you only get one, what would that message be?
There is nothing that is going to give you peace, give you comfort, or fill your cup as much as the love that Jesus has for you. Chasing football, chasing wins, chasing success, all those things are great because God gives us that. But if you put your worth in that and your identity in that, that's not going to always work out. And so placing your worth in something that's real and that's firm and that is never going to waver.
That's great, bro. That'll work.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you sharing, bro.
Of course.
It's good stuff.